Hello and welcome to this episode of the CCN podcast. I'm your host, Paul Medor. Today is Friday, July 3rd, 2015. The price of Bitcoin is sitting between $250 and $260 with a 24-hour high of $255. This is a Bitcoin finance episode. In this episode, I spoke to someone from Bitwage, which is a company that will allow you to easily get part of your paycheck in Bitcoin. And I spoke to Bitbond, which allows you to potentially fund a business or to invest your Bitcoin in, relatively safe Bitcoin investments. And I also spoke to our own Venzen Khaosan, resident trading expert, in a sense, about what affects the value of Bitcoin and how Bitcoin investing works. So without further ado, let's get into our first interview with the CEO of Bitbond. So I'm on the line here with Radko Albrecht, the CEO of Bitbond, which is a company that entrepreneurs can go through to find funding for their ventures. To date, you guys have funded over 700 loans. Is that right, Radko?
Yeah, hi Paul. Yeah, that's right. We've funded over 700 loans to date, and are growing Bitbond further.
With Bitbond, were there a lot of other companies in the same market when you guys came about?
So when we started Bitbond, there was one other company in the peer-to-peer Bitcoin lending space, and shortly after we launched, there was the next one, and so currently there was, I would say, three main incumbents in this market.
And what did you bring different to the table?
So the main difference versus Bitbond and our competitors is that we focus on the small business loan segment, while BTC Jam and Bitlending Club, our two main competitors, are in the personal loans segment. So that's one of the main differentiating factors. And therefore, the loan use cases are a little bit different. Also, the loans have, on average, longer terms on Bitbond. So the average term is somewhere between 1 or 2 years on Bitbond, while on the other two platforms, the terms are shorter, somewhere around 3 to 4 months.
So there hasn't been a lot of time yet, really, for some of the bigger loans to default, I guess. So defaulting, I think, would be the number one concern of someone looking to invest on a site like Bitbond or BTC Jam or any of them. And there was just a case that I wrote about within the last week or two where someone had gone through the arbitration process on BTC Jam, and then they were eventually able to use that in court. Now, do you guys have your own arbitration process, or do you have some way of legally forcing the say someone decided to stop paying on their loan? Would you legally be able to force them to?
The contract that borrowers and lenders are closing via the Bitbond platform are legally enforceable contracts, and they are very similar from a legal perspective to a contract that you would sign when you rent a car, for example. So when you rent a car over the weekend, for example, the car, you can use the car for 2 days, and then you have to return that car, plus you pay a fee on it. And Bitcoin, from a legal perspective, at least in Germany, is treated as a property, which means that you lend out a property and then you return a property of the same quantity and the same quality, plus you pay a fee for being able to use that property for a certain period of time, and that fee is the interest rate that you are paying on the loan. So from a legal perspective, it's an in-kind contract, so you're renting out a property, and it's definitely enforceable, just as you have an enforceable contract when you rent a car. You have the obligation to return that car.
Okay, so two things come out of that. The first is, so I guess I understand that the way German law works then is if I borrow 2 Bitcoins, I need to return 2 Bitcoins to you with a fee. I guess that fee is then denominated in euros.
No, the fee is also denominated in Bitcoins. I mean, you can freely design the contract the way you want to have it. And so the contract already determines that the fee is payable in Bitcoin and is calculated as a per annum percentage on the principal amount that's being lent.
And that's okay under German law. I would just think there might be a problem, if I was to say I lend you 2 eggs and you give me back 2.25 eggs. I thought that the fee would have to be in euros, but
no, it can be an in-kind payment, just like it's like a barter trade, basically, right? Where you would lend out something and then you would say get a certain quantity of whatever. It could be wheat or some other fruit, right? And you'd get a certain pre-agreed quantity back. And so that's how Bitcoin is treated. And it's definitely a type of contract that is possible.
So have you had these contracts put to the test in court yet? Have you guys had any? I'm sure you've had bad debtors. I mean, any kind of site like yours is going to have them. So have you been able to see how well they stand up in court as of yet?
No, there has not been a court case yet. So there are, of course, there is also some bad debt on Bitbond, like on any other peer-to-peer lending platform as well. But so far, we haven't brought a case to court yet, because the average loan amount on Bitbond so far is around about $300 in equivalent. And so bringing such a case to court typically wouldn't justify the legal costs that are associated with it, which is why typically the people who are lending on Bitbond diversify their portfolio very well and only invest smaller amounts per loan. So the minimum investment per loan on Bitbond is 0.01 Bitcoin, which is a fairly small amount, which means that when you invest just 1 Bitcoin, for example, you can already distribute your portfolio over 100 different loans. And that's what a lot of people do on Bitbond. So if there is a default, they would typically not try to go to court because the legal expenses are simply too high. The main thing actually to ensure that people are paying back their loan already happens, I'd say, one stage earlier. And that is where we decide whether we accept a borrower or not. So we have a pretty strict credit check, and we want to make sure that the people that get access to borrowing through Bitbond are creditworthy and capable of repaying their loan. And that's where you have the biggest impact, because once you have, I'd say, less creditworthy borrowers on the platform, no matter how good your collection procedures are, the chance that you get the whole loan amount back is always very small. So the biggest impact that you can have on your repayment rate is actually to determine which borrowers you want to accept and verify and which not.
You said the average loan is about $300. So what are some of the big success stories, in size and length to repay? And
so one very interesting success story that we had, for example, was a person from Kenya who runs a small technology company with 3 employees, and he got a loan through Bitbond equivalent of roughly $450, and he basically was building his company with that loan. And he also had a very nice Bitcoin related project because he was helping local merchants in Kenya to accept Bitcoin for their business. And so that's the company that he was growing. And he borrowed for a term of 1 year and also repaid it successfully. And he would not have had any other chance to get a loan unless his friends or family would have lent money to him. But otherwise, without a bank account and without access to I would say, a fairly developed banking system, it's not really possible to get a loan. And that was exactly what was the case for him. And so Bitbond offered a very new and very interesting opportunity for him.
how does Bitbond make money?
So we take an origination fee, as we call it. So whenever a loan gets funded successfully, we take out a cut of between 0.5% of up to 3% of the loan amount. So at the time of loan disbursement, we take the fee and then we disburse the loan to the borrower. And that's the revenue that we're making.
Well, thank you, Radko. I do appreciate what you're doing for the Bitcoin community with Bitbond. Maybe I'll check in with you in the future.
Great. Thank you very much for your time and all the best.
And I'm on the line with Jonathan Chester from Bitwage, the company that wants to take all your money and give it back to you in Bitcoin. Is that an accurate description of your business, Jonathan Chester?
Hey, Paul. Well, we are trying to make payroll a much more pleasant experience, if that's what you're going for.
I think that many of our listeners would agree that receiving Bitcoin is much more pleasant than, receiving something that will lose its value from the second we receive it.
Yeah, I'm sure the Greeks will definitely agree with that one right now.
They'll sympathize anyhow. So Jonathan, tell me about, Bitwage. I mean, like I have a Bitwage. It's called my Bitcoin wallet. I have to invoice the people that are paying me, but that's actually, I'm gonna go with more than 99% of the means that I've, received Bitcoin in my life. I haven't bought it and I haven't stolen it. I've earned it. So, I guess with any company or any business, you kind of have to have a reason why you exist. So are you trying to bring Bitcoin to the masses, or are you trying to make it easier for those interested to put a toe in the water? Like, what's the minimum percentage that someone can, have taken out of their check and given to them in Bitcoin?
Right. So with our service, we have an individual payroll product. We call this Bitwage Payroll for the Individual. It means that anyone, regardless of their employer signing up, can choose whatever percentage of their wages that they want in Bitcoin. So the way that this ends up being used is there's really three different types of people out there that are looking for this solution. One, there are people that just want an easier way to receive their Bitcoins, and they don't like having to deal with signing up to the exchanges. They don't like having to wait 4 days for their Bitcoins to come. We're able to actually send payments into your wallet next day after your direct deposits.
That I think that the people that you're going for aren't necessarily trying to use that Bitcoin right away, unless they're like an obsessed gambler or something and they can only gamble online. Really, the people aren't in like a huge rush to get to Bitcoin necessarily. Am I right?
Well, actually, our service is better for people that are in a rush to get their Bitcoin, right? Because if you are getting your full paycheck in Bitcoin, there's really no better way to do that, no faster way, no cheaper way to get your full paycheck in Bitcoin, right? Because you get, over $1,000 the next day into whatever wallet you want, right? It doesn't go into another exchange's wallet, and then that exchange is asking you, oh, where are you sending those Bitcoins to? I'm not really sure if I'm comfortable with that. It goes to whatever wallet that you choose.
So you're saying
you get to essentially control your money.
So you're the COO of this company, and I guess I'm really going to give you an opportunity to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about, which is kind of the censorship of our money. And so you're saying that if I was to put my CloudBet deposit address, CloudBet, the casino, that you would, without questioning me, you would receive my paycheck and send me the portion that I had delegated to my CloudBet wallet, regardless of anything. Like, you wouldn't involve yourself in my legal affairs, I guess. Is that what you're saying, or?
So when you receive your wages, your paycheck in cash, right now, when you receive your paycheck in a prepaid card, these services are not able to track what you're doing afterwards, and they don't. Of course, if you send your money to a bank, they will have the obligations to do that. We are not the the company that's holding your funds, we're just facilitating your payroll, right? We're making it a better, easier process for you to receive your payroll with a special benefit, which is that you're receiving your wages in Bitcoins. And one of the cool things that just came about in this, something that we just released, is this idea of cloud savings, right? And cloud savings has a lot of implications to this. We released this in a partnership through BitReserve. And one of them is that it makes it a lot easier for you to go full Bitcoin, meaning you can split your Bitcoin payouts so that you have 50% in Bitcoin, 50% held in the value of dollars, which is great for people who are trying to remove themselves from the financial system and trying to figure out how they can do that without risking all of their funds on these daily fluctuations and this daily volatility. So people can do 50% in Bitcoin, 50% held in their cloud savings account on BitReserve in dollars. Now, another implication of this actually has to do with international people, right? There are people all around the world, think people in Argentina, think people in Vietnam, think people in Zimbabwe. Their currency is just so out of whack. There's so much inflation. Think even people in Greece. People can't move money, in and out of their bank accounts in Greece. Well, a lot of them might be worried about, I'm holding my money with the volatility of Bitcoin, but they would definitely be open to the idea of using Bitcoin to get out of these systems, then hold their money in this cloud banking system, albeit with the value in dollars, euros, gold, Bitcoin.
So someone in Greece right now could utilize your service? Not to interrupt you, which I totally did, but someone in Greece could make use of your service right now? I mean, that's interesting. We should talk about that. So how could they do that if they can't, they're still working and they're still getting their money? The money hasn't evaporated out of Greece, but the banks, because they can't rely on International Monetary Fund extensions at the moment, that's actually up in the air, but because they can't rely on that, they are not allowed to send, transactions of a certain size, at least of all outside of Greece. And, so how would they facilitate that, I guess, is the ultimate question. Would they send you a wire via Western Union? I mean, what would happen then?
Yeah. So again, we are, in the business of helping people receive their wages. So the way that our system would work for Greek employees or Greek freelancers working for U.S. clients right now, that would be the market.
Okay, people so it wouldn't be someone it wouldn't be a Greek person working for a Greek client. And I guess somebody working for a Greek client internationally is kind of out of luck right now if they didn't use Bitcoin, huh?
Exactly. And so right now, what other methods do they have of receiving the payments? I'm not going to say that I'm a complete expert on exactly how shut down the banks are in Greece, but I will say that in terms of being able to have access to money that they can freely use, and they can move into one currency or another, and they can take with them from one country to another, this is really the only option that they have right now. As we're talking right now, we unfortunately can't help them receive wages if they're working for a Greek employer, but there's still a lot of freelancers who do work for American clients who need to figure out ways to receive their wages. And this happens to be a good one because they can receive their wages through Bitcoin, get that exposure to Bitcoin, learn that the reason why they're able to use their money is through Bitcoin, and then they can do it in a way that they're comfortable.
So, Jonathan, tell me, when the price dove, in December, it dove, around $100, I guess, in total over the course of a month, 6 weeks or something. Did that affect the people that had signed up, or did more people sign up, or did less? What do fluctuations in the price, what do they have to do with your business?
So the interesting thing that we see is that our system is more about dollar cost averaging, right? The main reason, the three main reasons why people use us are dollar cost averaging, which is a long bet on Bitcoin. So it's not as affected. We might see a little bit, 5-10% changes in a few people's payrolls, but it's not that big. Usually people will just are buying it if they're buying it for investment for a long-term perspective. This second reason is they want to get out of the current financial environment. And if they want to get out of the current financial environment, the price of Bitcoin is less of an issue. But in terms of getting a certain amount of their salary in it, but we're hoping that our new cloud savings system will allow them to at least mitigate some of the effects when there's a downturn, because they can receive some of their wages in the value of dollars without actually having to have a bank account. And then the third type of customer is these international employees around the world who just want a better way to receive their wages. And so these people really don't mind the fluctuation at all, because when they receive the Bitcoins, they're either converting at the last moment or they're holding it because it's just so much better than their current currency or their current options. Yeah.
Out of your core clientele, Jonathan, who do you think they'll go with? Will they go with themselves, having their own Bitcoin wallet, or, a blockchain wallet, God forbid, or something like that? Or will they go with the Bit Reserve option you just released yesterday? Or will they go with your Zappo option?
The three different options. Let me start by talking about the Zappo option, because I don't think I've spoken to that yet. We've partnered with Zappo to be able to offer a payroll debit card. And the way we like to think of it, right, is you can have your Bitwage cloud savings, your Bitwage payroll debit card, or you can just have the money sent to your own wallet. They're powered by Bit Reserve and they're powered by Zappo, but this is an ecosystem that we're building for people, right? We want to be able to make it extremely easy for people to receive their wages into whatever Bitcoin wallet they want. If they want to hedge some of that volatility, they can then put it in the cloud savings. They want to have a debit card, they can use the payroll debit card. So I think that it's going to be a real mix of it. And another thing I should preface is that this Bitwage Zappo debit card works in a lot of different countries, but you can't actually mail it into the U.S. So that should be noted before anyone
that's the
signs
banking
up and gets pissed
cartel
off.
at work, folks.
Yeah.
But so tell me, so say I went with, I'm interested in Bit Reserve, passingly. I've written some articles about them and I'm familiar. But so is like all of Bit Reserve's options available to you? Like Bit Oil is one I'm really interested in. Are like all of their products available through the cloud savings product?
Yep, all of their savings, all of their options are available on our cloud savings platform. So you're able to put your money in gold, silver, euro, Bitcoin, dollars, Chinese RMB, and a bunch of others. I believe that oil is not quite ready yet, and that's not our side. That's actually
right.
Bit Reserve needing to get that up and running. But what we see this turning into is a platform for people to not only receive their wages, but be able to manage it the way that they want to, give control back to people, so they don't have to deal with the constraints that the current financial system have put on them, and instead they can free their wages and really receive them and use them in whatever way that they want to.
So how did the partnership between Bitwage and Amaji Metals come about?
Yeah, so to be honest, I believe that they just came to us, right? We're the leading Bitcoin payroll platform out there, and they were dedicated to the Bitcoin cause. They really wanted to receive as much of their wages as they could in Bitcoin, and we were the solution for them to do it.
So what does Bitcoin mean to you? You know, I've heard a wide range of answers in my life, and I would like to hear yours, being someone who handles Bitcoin for a lot of other people kind of on a, I guess, weekly basis.
Yeah, so in my mind, it's all about efficiency and making systems better. So there is the idea that the current financial systems are a little broken. If you look at, for instance, international payments, you have to go through, a series of correspondent banks. They all have to put in SWIFT codes, and it's just an awful process. Wires get lost all the time. Then it takes 2 weeks for money to get somewhere. And Bitcoin really just cuts out all those intermediaries and makes it a lot better for people to receive payments, right? So from my end, I'm really excited about how this application works on an international payments level, right? If you were to replace all of the international payments just for the remittance market itself, right? You're looking at like a $20,000 Bitcoin, and that's a pretty cool thing to think about.
If it was only functioning in that way, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. If it took over the entire market, right? If Bitcoin's market cap was equivalent to the amount of funds that are sent across borders purely just for remittances. This isn't payroll market. This isn't the greater Forex market, just remittances.
Then it would be a very expensive Bitcoin.
It would be.
People would be receiving a few Satoshis instead of a few Bitcoins. And tell us about, the future of Bitwage, why we should sign up, and, what are some of your proudest moments while working with Bitwage. And, obviously if you've taken on a full-time position, you feel like it's a long-term deal, and you probably understand we're just getting started. But, tell us your feelings from here, from June 2015 or July. I'm sorry.
Well, so while we're very dedicated to continually making the process easier and better for employees domestically in the United States to just gain access, just a better way to gain access to Bitcoins. I mean, when you think about how you normally get your currency, you go down to the store to buy goods with. You don't go to an exchange and say, I want my dollars to be another currency so I can buy bread and milk. You just get paid in it. And I think that this is an important aspect of the Bitcoin ecosystem, is to make it more natural for you to receive Bitcoins. But as we continue to grow, I really see that internationally we're going to see a lot of growth, and we already are, right? We already see a lot of growth internationally, because while in the U.S. it's about freeing your money, internationally it's about having a better way to receive your money
and protect it.
Yeah. So if you're interested to learn more about Bitwage, or signing up, getting earning some Bitwages or some Bitcoins rather from your job, make sure to check us out. The website is www.bitwage.co.
So are there any people that can't use your service that you have already run into, like someone that works for, I guess, Papa John's or something? Is there any specific banks or businesses you presently haven't been able to work with yet? Have you had any failed cases like that?
Yeah, so we work with almost all payroll providers out there. The only time that we find an issue is when the payroll provider is a custom-made payroll, and so what ends up happening is you're not able to have two different bank accounts to split your direct deposits, but rather just one bank account. And so in that particular situation, you would have to get your entire wage in Bitcoin, which has been hard for I'd say most of us out there. Some people are actually looking for this, but not everyone. But that's one thing that we're hoping our new cloud savings service will solve, which is now you can have your whole wage come through our service, and you can hold 50% of it in dollars and 50% in Bitcoin. So
right,
there it is.
It's like time is valuable too, right? Like people don't necessarily want to compensate for their lost fiat value in hours sitting around on exchanges or whatever. That's understandable.
Exactly.
Certainly at this point in history, most people that will accept Bitcoin will also accept dollars. And, for our sake, both being Americans, let's hope it stays that way for at least a while. But, So, Jonathan, I hope the weather in San Francisco is treating you well. And I am going to let you go.
All right. Sounds good, Paul. Thank you for having me.
And now, Give Me a Sign by 22 Hertz, 22hertz.com. So today I have the pleasure of talking to Venzen Khaosan. You may be familiar with his articles on the Bitcoin market and the trends therein, and he also spends a lot of time on xbt.social, CCN's sister site. Uh, I wanted to have Venzen on today to talk about a couple different things. And the first is, Venzen, do you think that the Greek exit from the Eurozone is affecting significantly the price of Bitcoin?
Hi there, Paul, and good to be with you. I believe that there is a connection, but I don't think it is as straightforward as most people would like to think. There are, for instance, reports going around that, it's Greece, a nebulous Greece, that is buying up Bitcoin and is fueling this rally. I do not agree with that point of view. There's no evidence for it, number one. Number two, there are more concerns in Greece at the moment around living and the next week than people saying, I'm suddenly going to pile into Bitcoin. Because most Greeks, I mean, if you're a Greek person with resources and wealth, you would have been making your Bitcoin purchases for a while. So I do believe what we're seeing in the Bitcoin chart is related to Greece, in that market psychology is being affected, and there is a degree of fear that is driving price up. It is certainly not based on a new innovation in Bitcoin or a new uptake or anything other than there is a rattle in the global market. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. I guess I really want to ask, do you see this as a rally necessarily? I mean, $3 billion is about our current market cap, give or take. I think it's actually a little under that, maybe. But, $3 billion does not represent, the upper class of almost any country. It's not actually that much money in global terms. If we were seeing a rally where like super wealthy people were exiting, en masse toward Bitcoin, wouldn't we see a lot more influx than we're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, your initial point there, your first point, that the Bitcoin market is not that big. The market cap is around 3 billion. That's the figure that's going around. And it means that with all of the exchanges grouped together, you don't really have that much liquidity, right? You don't, it's not like, there are people in Bitcoin who are holders of Bitcoin and who are hedge funds, for instance, who are buying and selling Bitcoin on behalf of customers, and there are ETFs and so forth. Think about the Winklevoss brothers. None of those players, those really big players, can just drop their entire load in the Bitcoin market, because the market cannot bear it. So they have to be really careful. They've got to stagger their orders across days and weeks sometimes, to get them in. You can see the bots trading, 0.05 Bitcoin every 2 seconds, running for hours, or days. So that's in terms of the liquidity and the market cap. Yeah.
So you think that's their strategy for actually making sure that Bitcoin is there to buy as they place the orders?
Yeah, because they don't. They don't want to destroy the market where they want to make a profit, right? So they can't. For instance, Pantera Capital has got 150 million US dollars allocated to trading Bitcoin. Now, if they just put 150 million in the market at the same time, it would cause a massive spike. And
or
everyone
drop,
would stand
either side,
or drop if they sell, and everyone would kind of step back from their monitor and say, "What's going on? I can't handle that," and it would actually scare average participants, and
it'd be
evoke
a literal
the
bull
wrath of
market.
their competition. Say again.
It'd be a literal bull market. I mean, it would scare people away. Because they would say, well,
It would
why?
scare
I don't
people
want to
away,
jump
number
on
one.
this. I just saw $80 in growth in the last 5 minutes. I don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as we're seeing at xbt.social, when we all agree on a trade that we're gonna climb in the market at the same time as a trading collective, and then you can see when the first 100 Bitcoin order goes in, the market jumps. So we've actually had to calm down our strategy to say, let's stagger these in, let's build the order, and you kind of learn to handle bigger orders into the market. So as you say in your question, is this a large group, a large percentage of wealthy people suddenly piling into Bitcoin? I don't believe so, because price has gone up $40 from where we were 2 weeks ago, and that is not a lot of Bitcoin. I think the thing that mainly influences the price, the thing that ordinarily influences the price, is the fact that people are jockeying and positioning, and the driver behind them buying and selling is psychology. And the psychology has got two poles, right? You're either going to be in a positive mood or in a negative mood, and selling is associated with negative mood, social mood, because the market is an organism, right? And the price chart is its manifestation. You can see the mood of the market by looking at its price chart. So, for instance, gold is not really moving at this time, and gold is a famous safe haven. So can one say that is Greece moving the price of gold? I think not, because a lot of those people with traditional kind of values and knowledge would also be piling into gold, and that hasn't been happening. So when the Bitcoin market moves like this, and Bitcoin as a commodity, not Bitcoin as a currency, Bitcoin, I think, often moves upwards based on fear of these kind of liquidity and global economic events. And it's
So
not
you
coming
think
necessarily
that
from the rich
Greece,
people. It's coming from ordinary people saying, oh my God, it's time to buy Bitcoin, because everyone knows that Bitcoin is really has got good fundamentals in terms of what it offers, what it is at its core. It's censorship resistant. It is mathematically provable consensus, and it's got all of those, the cryptographic security and all of those aspects that make it valuable. So in a way, you always want to buy Bitcoin. You're just looking for an excuse. Yeah.
sure. I mean, I think that wouldn't, incentivize someone in Greece who otherwise wouldn't even consider it if they learned that there was a way to store their value besides leaving it in cash at risk of theft or leaving it in a bank at risk of theft. I think that
Yeah.
a lot of people
Yeah,
would choose
absolutely. And the
Bitcoin for
example
that.
you gave of the man in,
So, I mean, you got into this a little bit before, but I wanted to talk about, the mind of a Bitcoin trader. Personally, I've never bought any Bitcoin with cash. I've bought it with goods and services. I've either sold. That's how I got my initial Bitcoin, was to sell Raspberry Pi, and then I went on to work for it. But I've never gone and said, I'm going to take these assets that I might do something with elsewhere and buy Bitcoin with them. So I don't have a lot of understanding in terms of trading from dollar to Bitcoin, like what goes into people's thought process when they're doing that.
yeah,
So I thought you could,
yeah, I get
enlighten us.
exposure. Yeah, I can, from my experience, I get some traders at xbt.social, and you meet them online and in the article comment sections. There are some traders who are in cryptocurrencies because it's become accessible, right? They hear about it maybe now or 2 years ago or 4 years ago, and they like, I can actually own this thing. I can install the wallet myself, and I can trade it, right? So they buy low and they sell high, and they try and increase their cryptocurrency holding, whether it's Bitcoin or Litecoin or Darkcoin or whatever. And this is a particular style, and this is generally the entry level, where you kind of like, I'm going to buy this thing low, and then I'm going to sell it when it's higher, and then I'm going to wait for it to go down again, and so on and so on. This is the kind of buy low, sell high mentality, and it's fine because everyone should understand that, and every person who is into Bitcoin will experience it at some time. When you're like, well, I've got a Bitcoin price is at some rally high, I've got to sell it. You've got to have some tools or understanding of where you want to sell so that you get the best price, right? Before it plunges down the cliff again. At this level, we're all Bitcoin traders. Anybody, and fiat doesn't really allow you to do that unless you're now going to time your change from dollars into euros because you're going to Europe, right, as a tourist. But I think Bitcoin owners and Bitcoin users and Bitcoin miners get to think about this aspect of trade a lot more, about when to buy and when to sell, timing the market. As you progress along that path, you then start intersecting with the broader kind of understanding of trading, kind of commodity trading and Forex trading, where you're starting to use margin, right? I don't know if you're familiar with margin. I think not from what you just explained.
I briefly am from using, I guess this is a good chance to plug coincompetition.com. I got to experiment with margin trading there, and I wanted to comment just quickly, about the price. I mean, I think everyone who works for Bitcoin has experienced this phenomena where, you receive the money at one rate, and then the following day, if you wanted to use it at that rate, the rate that your work went to, it's just not there.
Yeah.
You've lost $20 per Bitcoin in value. And so, I think that there is when the price is higher and you have some need that you may need to fill, if you're working for Bitcoin, then you're gonna sell early, earlier than you might otherwise, for fear that you won't be able to get that price in 2 weeks.
Exactly, and in the end, you want to pay your bills, and you want to you want to get the best rate for your Bitcoin when you buy services and so on. So it's always there, present in your mind. As soon as you're holding Bitcoin, you're thinking about what is it exchanging to in terms of fiat, and where is the market going to, and you start looking at the chart and trying to find patterns, isn't it?
So are there any patterns, Venzen? Really?
There are patterns, and, Bitcoin, it distinguishes itself by having complex pattern. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've never seen anything like it in my life because I had started off trading Forex and stocks about 6 years ago, and you're kind of dealing with your broker and you're learning about margin, and you're thinking, well, gold is such a great thing. It must be going up forever. And, with beginner's luck, you get some really good trades in, and you read somewhere that the Swiss franc, is getting stronger, and you make a trade and it works for you. And with time, you learn that the technical analysis and the kind of the fundamental analysis and the sentimental analysis that roughly applies to all markets. It's a little bit different in Forex and a little bit different in stocks. And then you encounter a beast like Bitcoin, and all of these things are turned upside down. You've got to learn from scratch. And this is actually part of what we do at xbt.social, because not only does Bitcoin have a different way of moving and different inherent patterns, they also change over time. So a few months down the line, or sometimes a few weeks down the line, we'd be talking to each other at xbt.social and say, but this pattern is no longer got the same shape, So it's a big challenge, and we use a lot of tools. At the core of it is a analysis technique that I didn't discover, but I kind of formulated it into a trading method based on the moving averages that Bitcoin displays over a long period of time, since its beginning. And we're using that a lot. But in the smaller market movements day to day, it can be a real challenge. At xbt.social, we've actually made a habit of sitting out of the market rather than being in, because Bitcoin has been acting really strange the last 6 months.
Well, Venzen, I wanted to thank you for being on the show today. Y'all can catch Venzen's articles every day on CCN covering price, and you can interact with him at xbt.social.
Thank you very much for having me, Paul, and good luck.
And that's all for this episode of the CCN podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. For the latest cryptocurrency news, always check out ccn.la. And for more about me, Paul Medor, check out phm.link. If you have any suggestions or direct comments, please send them to paul.medore, Madore, at cryptocoinsnews.com.